Paul, you're here so quick. You're even before me. How you doing, buddy? Hey, Rock One. Hey, Alexander. Hey, Damian. How are we all doing? I think I'm waiting for one more person that wanted to get some stuff in for the stream, but wait, hold on. Posted 4 minutes ago. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So we're just gonna get this in and then we'll get this party started. Ooh, the Crash Bandicoot inspired one. Interesting. Yeah, how's everyone doing while I get this set up? Keep an eye on the chat as well. Alexander's doing good. Close to wrapping up my project. Nice. That's awesome. We're going to be talking about it today as well. I'm just going to switch over to this one. Let's do it. Get the chat up in here as well. If you're giving feedback with mine, could you do mine last? I don't think you're in it for this weekend. For this update, you forgot to tag it with feedback requested, John. Let me make sure. So we don't have your stuff in it, so I'm gonna have to do it last as well. Let me get Jeremiah's work up in here. Let's get that in. Sorry for posting so late. Ugh, I'll never forgive you, Jeremiah. How dare you? It's all good. You can always try to plan ahead, but you gotta stay wary of any last minute changes, right? Forgot about that. I just take the interested button instead of the event. Sorry. Lol. No, no worries. We'll add your stuff in there as well. Still setting up anyway. There we go. Grab your stuff. Get that all in there. Okay, where am I looking? Don't have time, it's okay. No, it's all good. Last minute stuff coming in. Should be quick enough to set up anyway, so. It's all good, man. We'll make it work. Just crop it. Cool, we're set up. Let's have a look. So Alexander's working on his project, trying to wrap it up. Gonna be talking about it today. Jeremiah's here, let's party! Yeah! So nice I didn't make it to the feedback session on time. That's awesome. And we got Nikori in the chat as well. Happy to have you all here today. Okay. In the future, what I'm going to do is I'll send like an update or like a reminder in the channel as well. Let me actually do that right now because we actually have like a new tag for live stream specifically. So I will be posting updates for when I go live in the future. So if you want to be notified of that and you're already a community member, just go to the server rules and you can add the live stream tag to yourself. You can self-assign that. So yeah, I will be doing that in the future. So you get updates for like when Work in Progress Wednesday is happening, or when I go live for my art streams, or anything like that. All the good stuff. Just quickly sample this here. Cool. Save it out. So we don't have to do that anymore. Save this one out for Jeremiah. Cool. All right. We got a fair couple of you. General Sutton, good evening. Hello, hello. How's it going? Let me switch over to my overpaint screen. Let's go. Let's do this. Gabis, thank you so much for subscribing. Appreciate that. Okay. Just grab a sip of my cold coffee and then good to go. Okay. First one up, Aaron Burnhope. This is looking freaking amazing. I love the look of it already. This is inspired by Horizon Zero Dawn. So we're gonna first have a look at some context. If there's anything Aaron wants specific feedback on. Feedback on texturing. It's already awesome. So I'm gonna try to keep it to the texturing. Yeah, this is looking good, man. Okay. One thing we're gonna dive into like the weeds immediately. Grab my like little pen here. There we go. There's one thing here that stands out to me. And that's this section. It's also happening, it's mainly happening on these brown spots. You know, like these let's call them like dirty surfaces where you can see that you're doing a slope blur. Like it's really obvious here. You can immediately like recognize the pattern. It's fine to use a slow blur, right? But when it looks like this, you gotta make it a little bit more looking like dirt, you know? Gotta massage it in, right? Coffee is live? Yes, Paul, that's right. Ariane S, how do we submit our stuff for review here? I'm new here. Yeah, welcome, first of all. So this is a weekly stream where I go through like the community feedback, and if we have time at the end, I might pick up some people that are in the stream, but I want to prioritize people that are actually part of the community first. So yeah, I think the quickest way, if we get to it, feel free to go on over to my Twitter. I think it's linked actually in the description down below. And just send me a message with some latest images. And then maybe at the end we can get to it. But no promises on that though. Yeah. But Aaron, that's the first thing that I will say about that. Where you can kind of recognize the slope blurriness of it. You also have to be a little bit careful with like using these edge generators, right? Like usually what I tend to do is I use them as a base and then I'll paint out like certain sections where it doesn't make sense that it's going to be so damaged. So this looks too generated, right? So paint out some sections or whatever you want to do, right? You can paint them out manually. What you can also do is add another layer on top of it and just fade them out with like a clouds or like whatever noise you want to put in there, right? So that you don't have like that stereotypical generator look where it like pretty uniformly like adds damage to like all the edges. And what you can do there is think about like what's the most likely position that you'll be stumping into this, and try to add like damage to those areas. For example, corners, right? Like corners, they're gonna bump into stuff all the time. These straight edges are probably gonna see like less of it. So what you can then do is you can add more damage here, fade it out towards this edge, and then maybe do another patch here, and then do another big one on the corners. Right, so that you get like more localized, but like bigger sections of like damage. Kind of like you're doing here, right? But you still have a little bit of that line just all the way through that you need to try to get rid of. Yeah, man, this is looking awesome. You know, great job on like the prop itself. It's looking killer. I'm gonna try to stick to texturing for this one because you specifically asked feedback on texturing. There's there's one thing that I will say. I know I said I'm setting up a rule and then I immediately break it, but try to add like a little bit of character in certain places where it's like really straight. You know, where you can almost feel the geometry. You kind of want to break that up a little bit, and maybe because the way that I think about that is you have like it's an artisanal craft at this point, right? Like it's set in like it's not with modern tech where everything is like precise and like super straight. This is gonna be like handcrafted, so you're gonna see like a lot of this stuff that's gonna be like slightly bent and like slightly off. It's gonna be slightly crooked here, maybe. This is gonna have like a bevel on it. Maybe this detaches a little bit from the surface, you know? Then comes back down again, so that you get like a little bit of a gap as it bends down to the other side again. It's just those details can make it feel like really handcrafted, and that's kind of what you're trying to set up with this prop anyway, right? Like the attention to detail. So that's definitely one thing that you could look into on the modeling side. On the texturing side, it's looking freaking amazing. What you could maybe do on the texturing side is, again, thinking about how they use these things, right? You're probably going to have a blade that you put down here that's then going to be like aligned with this grindstone or whetstone. I think it's a grindstone. So you're probably going to see like a bunch of like metal shavings or like metal residue on top of this. And then maybe even have a lot of that residue also affect like the edges, kind of like you're doing here already, right? Real nice. So, metal residue. Just a suggestion, but maybe add a clan that it's associated to, the Ostrom clan or the Builders, but what if it was made by the Cario, for example? Would there be a specific branding? Yeah, I think there is some of that here. Right? I'm not quite familiar with how that works, but I think there's some branding or like how the in-game lore of that works, right? So I don't know if this is like significant in terms of like an indication to the local clan, but it could be. Don't have an idea about that. Oh, this stuff is nice. Where you have like two separate bits of wood merged together with like this metal. It's awesome. Lady Raven is saying, how much did I miss? Not too much. We just started. Welcome. Yeah, you can do a lot with like a little bit of crookedness, right? But like on the texturing side, looking really good. This part is really well done. Right, because there's so many layers going on here where you have like you have some sort of dirt, and then you also have like some sort of caked mud, right? Like we're kind of seeing this stuff, which looks to me like it's more like caked mud. But then there's also just like, I don't know, there's some gray stuff going on here, which could be like what is it? Dust, right? Dust or metal shavings can also be the thing. So I love this section, how everything comes together as well. There's a little trick that I actually learned in our last workshop that we did with Antoine Dejean, where he will add like a random noise on top of it and then sample the top bar of Substance Designer. So you're basically just color picking with a gradient map, like all the different colors. This is obviously like in Substance Designer as I'm saying it. But you can replicate the same thing in Painter. So what he did is he sampled like all the random logo icons and then used that as a gradient map to drive like a random noise, and that would give like a very what is it, like a very multicolor kind of noise that you can then add as an overlay at the end to just give like a slight variation in like the color, which just it brings together the entire thing, but it also adds like little bits of like color variation with colors that you wouldn't necessarily use when you're creating a prop like this. So could be very interesting. I'll add it to the side as well. Hold up, I'll be right back. Right, we're back. But yeah, great stuff on this, Aaron. This is looking killer. I'll just make like a quick note of the random color noise. Random color noise as overlay. Could be like a nice thing to do in the end, you know, just to get that little bit of color variation. Yeah. Nice job though. I love this prop. Looks really good. Really, really good. I think you nailed the concept as well. So great job on that, Aaron. Sweet. Let's move on up to Alexander. Alexander's getting close to the end of this project, so we're mainly going to be focusing on the different views and like the different presentation angles. So this is going to be relatively quick, I think. Just going to pick a couple of angles. Oh, actually, while I pick my favorites, I'm going to number them. Right, and I'll let you pick your favorites as well. So it's going to be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6, and 7. So feel free to pick which ones you gravitate towards the most. Then we'll see. We'll see if we have a favorite in the end. Well, not in the end. Like in a little bit. But yeah, to come back to your point about the previous thing, Paul, that's actually a cool one. Like, just to think about the branding and like the local clans, that's a very good suggestion there, man. It could be very interesting. It depends on if he already implemented it or not. I have no idea. Jeremiah's coming in with number 6. Number 6 is very cool. We got 3, 1, 6. 3 and 6. Keep in mind that 1, 2, 4, and 7 have existing lighting that's subject to change. Yeah, it's more about like the composition of it, right? So wait, like 1, 2, 4, and 7. So like basically most of the close-up shots are gonna change. So I guess we have 2 votes, 3 votes for 6, 2 votes for 3. 1 is cool as well. Yeah, I think I have to agree. My personal favorites, or like, I'll kind of do them in order, right? I like number 3. Number 3 is nice. I think before we dive into it deeper, I think what is really interesting to me is that you can always make it a little bit more dynamic than having like these static blueprint like shots. I think if you want to do a shot like number 1, for example, you can totally do it, right? Is kind of against, not against, that's a strong word, but it's not my personal preference when presenting it, because it kind of feels like you're just doing like more of a blueprint kind of shot where you have the front and then you have the sides and then you have the top, you know? Like it's that kind of shot where it just feels like kind of static and boring to me, where you could have like something like more interesting with just, yeah, something like 3 or 6. You know, these two are really good. The same is kind of happening with 5, right? Even though we're angling the camera a little bit lower down, so it's not like straight top down. But yeah, could be more interesting if you just angle it a little bit more, right? So like a little bit of more perspective in it. Just more interesting. I think these are good as well. 4 and 7. Out of these two, So wait, let's go back a little bit. I think 3 and 6 are definitely keepers. Right? I think they are definitely good to go, in my opinion. Out of these two, I do like that we're getting highlights here. I do like that. Like this is more, like this has more contrast. But I actually don't mind that this has less contrast, if you know what I mean. Like we're getting some interesting shadows here, but like the rest of the prop is actually fairly evenly lit, apart from like the highlights here. But I actually don't mind it. I think this one might be even like a little bit too harsh. Too harshly lit. And you might even have realized that yourself, right, Alex? Because you're trying to change up the lighting anyway. So yeah, I would probably go with something more like 4. Also, the framing of it is a little bit better, because here, this goes into detail, right? Like, you have like a lot of stuff that's pointing you that way, and there's nothing here. Like it feels like you can escape the frame. Whereas in this one, like you're kind of boxed in. You have to take it all in. That's what I like about it too. So, not this one, because we have this one. And then out of these ones, I think focusing on like the details could be very interesting. It just has to be like a bit more dynamic, right? Or like a little bit angled, what I've been saying the entire time, basically. more dynamic. Same for this one here. I think these ones are kind of close together. Right? Especially if you're going to angle this one, then we're kind of going into the same territory with number 3 compared to number 5. So that's why if they're getting too close, I'm probably going to not go for this one. And honestly, number 1, it's up to you what you want to do with that, right? Like if you want to go for like a very sterile presentation and have like different angles that way, you could go for that. But I think it could, again, be more interesting if you have a shot like this with like a slight rotation on the camera and then focusing on all these gorgeous details that you have down here. Just with like a bit more of dynamic shot again. Yeah, more dynamic on this one as well. How far have people progressed in development? Still embarrassed for someone who is just learning everything? We have people all over the spectrum. So there's no set like progress in their development. I think we're just all over the place. Well, from the people that you're going to see today. Oh, there goes my pen. From the people that you're going to see today, they're all over the spectrum. Lady Raven is also saying 3 and 6. Yeah, I have to agree. I think they're definitely like the best ones. And then we got 4. And then possibly 1 and 2 for like detail shots, right? Alex is saying also agreed on 1. Might rotate it to show the backside a little bit more too. Yeah, that could be cool. I think almost what you want to see, and you probably have this in mind too, right? Is where you have a thumbnail. You have a thumbnail that is focused on the details, right? And then you open up with like a bunch of screenshots that give you like a nice overview. Then as you scroll down, you get into the details. And potentially, I don't know if you have this planned, but like potentially a breakdown as well. Right? That's what I'm thinking. In the way of structuring things on your portfolio then. Because the detail is gonna, you have such gorgeous detail in your prop. So highlighting any of it is gonna be like very interesting to look at, right? Because you have such a good attention to detail. And then opening up, like it's almost, it might be a silly comparison, but the way that I look at it is you're going into a tunnel and then you open up to see this beautiful mountain range, right? And that's kind of the way that I look at it, where you focus on something very specific and then you zoom out to show like everything. And it kind of has this like a wow moment of like, dang, some really good stuff. Currently working on a breakdown as you're reviewing this. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Hey, and if you ever want to do something for Beyond Extend, just reach out. Jack, this is the first feedback stream I've joined. I haven't got any work to present, sadly, but love the fact that the opportunity is available. Yeah, that's awesome, Jack. Happy to have you here. So yeah, I think we've got a couple of winners here. I think overall, very good presentation. You know, I like the light. I like the adjustments that you've done in the last couple of weeks. Well, especially in the last week where you changed up like a lot of textures to influence how they look in the scene. So you're definitely making really good choices, Alex. You're nearly there. Awesome work. Let's move on up. Oh, yeah. For people that are new to the stream, feel free to share your own thoughts as well. Paul had a really good example before where he was talking about the branding. And if anything is not clear, feel free to ask as well. Like if you want me to explain anything further. Alex saying awesome, thanks. No worries. Thanks for sharing it as well. Next one up, we have Fabiano. Fabiano is working on this terracotta tile from like a solo challenge a while back. I'm just gonna get some context, right, when people post their work. So it's trying to give it more personality, break the flat feeling with new color adjustments and textures. Let me know if I can improve anything more. Cool. So I think it's already looking like way better than you had it before. I think the roughness itself, let me show you what it was at before. Oh, yeah, then immediately close it. Yeah, this is what it was before. Like the pattern is there, right? But I think right now the roughness is like way better. It starts to feel a little bit more like it's actual stone, right? I think the grout is also way better, but I think I failed to explain what I meant on like a deeper sense. Because I think the grout is good, right? So let's start with that. So grout is good, like the size of it. But I think what you want to do is, and you'll have to check your references for this as well, right? But what you want to do is probably bevel the edges a little bit more because they're like really sharp at the moment. Whereas when I think about terracotta tile, I'm thinking about handmade, like very aged, so they get like a bit more rounded over time. So let's point that out. Round, and it's slightly, right? Like you don't want to overdo it, because as soon as it starts to feel like, oh, it's getting too round again, then yeah, you have to kind of thread that balance. So round edges a little more. And then what you can actually do, and this is probably better to show off here. This is something else completely, right? So we had the edges. If you just round those off a little bit, that can help as well. Onto the color of these tiles, you have to be careful with, especially you kind of have to think about tiles as like all individual tiles that have been put together in like a combination like this, right? So what that means is that this tile over here should look different than this tile over here, right? But what we usually tend to do is when we do the color pass on this, we usually overlay like a noise, right? But you get this really procedural look at the moment. So this is what's happening here with the base color specifically, is it looks really procedural. It looks procedural, right? Or like the color specifically in this case. But this is also probably gonna expand to the other channels as well. Yeah, so what we want to do here then is you need to find a way to make multiple masks and then apply a different noise to those different masks. So we basically, like if we look at our entire tile set, right? Let's say this is the amount of tiles that I have. What you want to do in this case is this is going to be 1, this is going to be 3, 1, 2, 4, or well, maybe not 4. Okay. 3 over here, maybe. You see what I mean? Like you're getting some randomization in there where the noise is not going to spread all over the tiles, but this noise that we apply to number 1 is only going to be applying to like all the tiles with number 1. And then you do the same thing on like number 2, and that way you get like a more randomized look when you do use a noise to generate your gradient map for your base color. The way that we can do that is with a flood fill. So a flood fill is really handy. So what you normally do is, or how this works, is a flood fill would basically look at the shapes and then just fill them up with something, right? So usually what you do is you have your base pattern. And then you put that into a flood fill node. And then with this flood fill node, it actually gives you like a bunch of options to combine it with another node that uses a flood fill as a base. So in this case, what you can do is flood fill to grayscale. Let me just make it shorter to gray. Grayscale. And then what that is going to do is it's actually going to give us like a randomized grayscale value for every island inside of our pattern. So it's actually kind of going to do what we wanted to do here. And then you can use a histogram on that to start clamping the values and actually make it a mask where you could clamp it to like a certain range of grayscale and then push that all the way to white, right? And then you can kind of get to a point where you get like a mask for all the values that are pure white, right? And let's say 4 is pure black. And that's a way where you can have like multiple masks. And then you can start combining them, right? You just use like multiple 2 grayscale or like multiple histogram scans, and then you combine them back together or use them as masks later on when you want to do the base color. So that's like a really quick explanation. There's probably like tons of YouTube tutorials out there on how to use like flood fill and how you can actively use it. But that's going to give you like a lot of randomization when it comes to this noise on the base color that we have right at this point. And that's going to make a huge difference. You could also use that as a mask to break up some of the tiles. So let's say you have tiles that have like a stronger noise or like a stronger normal noise, right? You could also use it that way, right? Don't limit yourself to the base color. And like, instead of having this pretty uniform like noise on top of them, what if you had a couple of tiles that had like bigger noise on it, right? Like bigger normal deformations on it. Be very interesting to play around with. So the big thing here is more subtle variation. Because you got to keep in mind, like we use these masks, but then you still want to have like subtle variation so that you don't make this tile like orange and then this one you make yellow, right? Because then you're completely destroying like the subtlety that you often have with like real world materials. Yeah. I think the colors themselves are actually really good. It's just they need to be applied in a different way. So yeah. I think that's going to be a huge change up for you, Fabiano. So it's going to make a huge difference. So I'm looking forward to how you're going to apply it. Hey, George. What's up? Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. How are you? Yeah. Great job, Fabiano. It's been a while since we looked at this, you know. I think it was like a couple months ago, I think. So I hope you find the time to work on it. Got another beautiful environment here. Are WIP Wednesday feedback sessions included in the $5 mentorship? Yes, they are. Yeah. Everyone that's in the channel can put their work up, and every Wednesday I go through all the ones that requested feedback. So they absolutely are. George is doing food. Okay. Enjoy food, George. Nah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, we got Jono here. Next person up. And we actually had a look at Jono's work last time as well. Did I save out previous one? We can just have a look at our Discord. Doo-doo. So this is how it was looking before. No, wait. Is that it? Oh no, it's even way back. This is how it was looking before. Now we ended up with something like this, like a little bit more subtle. I like where this is going. I love what you've done with the foreground as well. Love that. That didn't even like cross my mind when I opened it. Like I didn't even notice it. Like the foreground elements here with the depth of field. Oh, nice. Love that. Same thing happening over here. It can make such a huge difference in your scene, and you've got all the stuff there, right? It's just composing them in different matters. So great job on that, Jono. Great job. What I also love about what you've done is you've toned down the God rays, right? Which was something that we talked about last time. But also I feel, and I actually don't know if we discussed this last time, but you're getting more different colors in them. And I actually think that this smoke that adds like the blue little hue in the entire scene is actually working really well here. So, love that as well. Yeah, great job. Great job. Was this always copper? Daily Raven is also saying, love the lighting in this scene. Yeah, it's looking nice, right? Let me actually pop on over to Discord again. Oh, so it kind of was. Okay. Wait, let me actually see. A whole bunch of breakdown stuff. I could benefit from a second pair of eyes. Especially the screen recordings I did to showcase the material. Oh, okay. Yeah, but not as well lit. Oh, okay. That makes a huge difference, yeah. Yeah. Like, the reason why I got so attracted to it is because I've been working with, like, a lot of medieval stuff, right? And don't see a lot of copper in there. But honestly, like, it's such a small thing. Like, usually it's, like, cast iron or something like that, right? Like, the heavy black stuff. I don't think it's that big of an issue, though. This is nice. I like the ground foliage that you did as well. Ground foliage, a little bit of foliage here and there. It's looking good. Yeah, but actually, you didn't really want to talk about this specifically, right? Get final feedback? Okay. So we can kind of look at the final feedback, but also just look at the thing as a whole as well. Because you wanted to look at the materials too, right? Okay. On my battery. Mouse is gonna die. Plug that in real quick. That's not what I want. Yeah, but we'll have a look at your post in a little bit. I think honestly you've done a good job of just like massaging the scene and like making it like way more soft. You know, that's what I like about this, is that it feels like way more soft than it did before. we're not dealing with like the harshness of all the god rays, and everything feels kind of massaged. So great job on that. Yeah, honestly, I think the scene itself is in a very good position. Honestly, don't really have too much to add on it. Plus, we can talk a bit more about the presentation on your portfolio, right? Because I can tell that you're kind of keen to just get it out there as well. So let's jump on over. Let's see what we can say about these things over here. Gotta be careful for the fire here. I think what you want to do is kind of push it just a little bit more like lower, because now the fire feels like it's floating. Or what you could also do is just grab some random pieces of wood that you have and like kind of build like a little very low fire, right? So you can obscure like the origin position from that. Yeah. Great job on like softening the lighting, really. Great job on that. We kind of talked about this stuff already, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. I think the presentation is very well done here. Put some lots for the vegetation as well. That's cool. Yeah, you gotta maybe be careful with the last one, right? Where you turn the trees to billboards. Let me actually see again. Because some of them don't turn to billboards, right? So if you're showing off that you can do like the whole billboard thing, maybe what people are gonna expect is that you can turn all of them into billboards. Especially like the medium ones on the left, right? Or like the medium one on the right. Because you turn all the other ones to a billboard, but not those ones. So it's a question of consistency. You know, when you show off the billboards, which I think is very good, I think you have to do it like consistent with all of them, I think. Because else, like basically the question that I'm trying to avoid that people are gonna ask you is like, oh, why are these billboards but not the other ones, right? Because they still have like lots of like a dense poly count. I mean, you could answer that question in like a bunch of ways too, but yeah. Wait, let's actually. Especially the screen recordings where I did to showcase my materials. I honestly think when it comes to this stuff, the panel to the right is completely obsolete. Right? Because I think I only care about the visuals, and then if I want more, I don't know, we can just talk about it, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. But it's interesting that you show this off because I think this is very valuable. I don't think we necessarily need to see like all the things. Maybe because I'm thinking about it in like presenting yourself as like a professional, right? Like the professional like a little bit of video editing can like go a long while. That makes sense. Like let's say you're doing this, but instead of showing like all the buttons and like all the little sliders, pick the ones that are most interesting and have like a little section on the bottom bar that says changing the wind speed. And then once you go to the next section, like get away with that text, fade it out or whatever, and then fade in the next bit of text. Like usually that's not too hard to do, but it can make your stuff look so much more professional than just like a screen grab from like the whole Unreal Engine thingy, right? I'm purely talking about like the optics of this. Like the content itself is awesome, right? Because yeah, also Pick the ones that are... I'm trying to think. Like, I think it could be valuable to pick the ones that are most interesting to look at. Like, for example, I think the normal one. It's like the normal one is barely making a difference, right? Like, visually, you can't really see anything happening here. So either you need to get up real close, or you just leave that one out. Because also, these videos, they take quite a while, right? For like quick little demos that you expect people to see on like a portfolio. Yeah, I would... Yeah. I'm very rigid when it comes to that stuff though. Like, I always think about like optimizing the time that people are going to spend on your portfolio post. And this stuff is all really amazing, but it's already like, again, 40 seconds, right? So try to maybe condense it where you just show it off instead of having to do like a live demonstration of it. That would be my thing. Oh, also, yeah, don't add references in here. I don't know. Maybe this is a personal thing, but I don't really care about the references, you know? Like, if something really feels off, like, people can genuinely tell when something really feels off. So I don't think the references need to be in here. The rest of it, and it looks good. I would also not do this kind of stuff because I can't... Can I read it? Like, let's see. So, open a new image. Then, okay. No one's gonna do this, right? Like, no one's... If they look at this, they're gonna be like, okay, cool, I know what's happening. But if they don't, then they're not gonna dig deeper. Right? I know that this is very... to the point, or harsh even. I don't know how to say this, but like, that's what recruiters do, right? Or like, people looking at your portfolio, they don't have a lot of time, so you basically want to capture them where it matters with the stuff that's important for them to see. And this material stuff, again, amazing that you did it, right? And it shows off, but I think this is more impactful, like showing this, that you did all this with like all the adjustments, than this. Because yeah, like these presentations, these ones up here, they're so clean that it just gets like really muddy and like really, I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of stuff on there that doesn't need to be. Let's call it that. So I would say, let's go through the post, right? Let's make it actionable. Like what you could do here. Like, this is cool. Don't necessarily need to see this. Let's make sure. Yeah, I don't necessarily need to see all of this, per se. Like, this is cool where you just say, like, one blueprint to do all of this stuff, right? And then I wouldn't do this. Not really, because honestly, I can't really even see this one in the scene. Right? Or, yeah, basically, like, you take all these videos where you show off, like, all the cool stuff and make that one, like, a 1 minute video. Like, all of it. Like, one 1 minute video. And just have that. And that just becomes, like, your showcase for what you did tech-wise. And I think that one video can be, like, way more impactful than, like, all these little things, like, done together. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. If you got any more questions, Jono, feel free to ask away. Let's also see, right? So, second pair of eyes, especially on the screen recordings, I did to showcase my materials. Cool. Yeah, again, the scene itself looks awesome. I think, yeah, you can win some easy points You can win some easy points with just a presentation on your portfolio. But yeah, I would say let the scene do most of the carrying. That's where you kind of want to be. You could even go as far. This is up to you. I don't really have a preference in which one you do. But like some people have like a post where they just show off the environment, and then they have like a breakdown post next to it where they go like really in depth with like all the stuff. And what that allows you to do is you just focus on the visuals that are more catered towards like people that don't have enough time, right? Like an art director or like someone that's looking to recruit you. And then for the people that want to dive deeper, you could link it in the description and say like, hey, I did a breakdown here. And then just link to all the videos separately. And you can kind of go as long as you want in that case, because they actually sought out the information. I think might be an interesting approach to you. It depends on what you want to do. Yeah, great stuff, Jono. Great work. Cool stuff. Thank you so much for putting it up as well, Jono. Appreciate it. You like the idea to breakdown post? Yeah, could be something for you. Like the option is there. I think if you want to show off like all that information that you have right now, what I would do is maybe put in like some of the images, right? Where you say like, hey, I made this and this is from Megascans or whatever. And then the deeper breakdown stuff, you could do that in like a separate post. Awesome! Next up, we got George. George is making a nice little cinematic. Oh, wait, before we move on, George, I'm gonna give a shout out to Jono, just the person that we just talked about, because I see you popping in like everyone's thread and giving suggestions, helping each other out. Thank you so much for doing that, Jono. That's really appreciated. I think the people appreciate that too. That's amazing. Yeah, George, let's have a look. Need to do some scattering with the rocks, and I feel like the project is around 70%, but it's going to be the last 30% that will take the longest, as it always does. Okay, so basically iterating on all the stuff that you have here, and then, yeah, just focusing on getting it all together. Let's actually do this, right? Let's have a look at the post itself, like the video, because that one is pretty cool. So this is still work in progress, right? Still needs to do like texturing on the models, but the shot is pretty cool. Got some cool props here as well. Then we got like the asteroid coming in at the end, right? Which I think this one, as a quick thing, like this needs some trail, you know, like some like fiery trail behind it, because right now it just feels like it's just like a floating skull or something, right? Where it's just like, whee! The end explosions, yeah, exactly. The visual itself is looking pretty cool, man. This shot is great. Yeah. I like where this is going. There's a reason why I picked this one, right? It's such it catches the eye really quickly, you know, in this scene specifically, it really quickly catches the eye. So you gotta make sure that this has like all the geometry and like all the detail that you want to put into it. So make sure that it has like a lot of that character too, right? And I think you're even thinking about like redoing the door. Is that what I read? Did I read that? Oh, thinking about making a new door that pops more out as well. Yeah. So yeah, go crazy with the geometry, right? Well, go crazy within reason, of course. But like, make it look really good. You know, like I would even push these panels out a bit more so that you also get like a little bit more of AO, right? And you can maybe go with context shadows to really put a focus on that. Where are we at? Why you no paint? There we go. So yeah, I would definitely think about like more geo. And also a thing that I keep coming back to with a lot of people is give it more character as well, right? Like have a panel that is like partially ripped off or like goes up a little bit and is detached at this point, right? Indicating that this has been there for a long time. Maybe there's also some repair work that happened, you know, so that one of these things is actually a different color because someone came in and had to repair one of the joints, or maybe he did the repairing himself. And then you can kind of do the same with the door as well, right? Like the door, because the rest of it is going to be fairly simplified. The door is going to be super important when it comes to actually indicating that this has like a lot of character. And yeah, you can do that a lot, right? By just slightly moving the geometry, giving it more character like we do with like all of this kind of stuff. So let me make some notes here while I'm talking as well. So other color, repaired. And then bend panels. And this is all up to you, right? Because I don't know what kind of story that you have in mind, right? Or like the specificity of the story. So if there's something better that you can come up with that's still in line with giving this whole thing character, go for it, right? But you can do the same thing here, right? Like this is not going to be like a continuous circle. Highly likely. You're probably going to have some gaps in here. So what if one of those panels is that you just like bagged a little bit, right? Just went down a little bit. Just gives it like character, you know? What we want to do. And then also, this is one thing that I noticed is, let's say, let me actually grab your scene again, because I think you got a character ref in there. Or do you? Oh yeah, you have a character ref in there. So look at the character ref and then look at the amount of stairs there are. I think you would need at least like a couple of stairs like in the middle. Right? Because this is like almost... What is that? Like maybe not this one, right? Because you're getting up to it. But then on the staircase, like on a normal ladder, you have like stairs that are like fairly short to each other. So I would probably add like a couple more in there as well. But honestly, compared to like all the rest that we talked about, like this is going to be more of a detail, right? But yeah, you can do a lot here. My defense, the references like that, change it up. Don't follow the reference 100%. If you think it doesn't make sense, change it up. I mean, look, it's up to you. If you want to keep it like that, that's also fine, right? Totally up to you. But yeah, for the door, yeah, making something look more interesting, that's gonna be very helpful. Possibly... Nah. I was thinking possibly keep it in line with the rest of the design, right? Because you got like a very angular design. Could possibly be very interesting to look into. You kind of have something like that, but I don't think it matches it too well at this point. That's also probably why I had the feeling that you needed to replace it as well, right? But yeah. Just really go crazy and make this like look really good, right? Like the second UV and like the masking and all that stuff is going to be very helpful. Especially what could be really cool is where you have because this is kind of like a weather station kind of thing, right? Like I'm imagining where you have like almost a constant directional wind in like one side, and that is just like literally hammering against this building. And what that means in terms of texturing is you could have like way more dirt buildup, right? Because the landscape is actually going to be pushed against this building. And then maybe you have like a lot of scratches on one side, but then the other side is like a little bit left untouched because of it. So you could actually have like a little bit of like a buildup here. And then you could have a bunch of scratches going all over the place. They kind of follow like these panels. That could maybe give you like an interesting look. And what that also does is it embeds the asset more into the terrain as well. Plus, I mean, the terrain is looking damn good already, so might as well make use of it, right? Yes. You'll probably... I was thinking about these props, right? You'll probably have to move them somewhere else. Maybe the other side. Because it makes sense if it's constantly going in like one direction, then you're probably going to want like them sheltered somewhat from that damage, right? That also means that they're not going to be in the composition though. But I'm sure you'll figure something out. Or you just have the wind blowing from the other side. So yeah. Like wind blowing, and then it's literally pushing terrain. Right, that could be a very interesting one. Also because you can add layers in the texture again, right? That's going to be really interesting how you approach that. Then also just have a gradient from like bottom to top, because you're going to have like more accumulation of sand and dirt like at the bottom. And it can almost be kind of what you're doing here, right? Where the paint is stripped off of the paneling. But I see that more as like a gradient from the bottom up. Because you have like lots of stones or like lots of rubble that's been constantly blown into this. So it's literally shaving off like a bunch of the paint layer over here at the bottom. And then the more you go up, the more paint you have again. So you get that like nice gradient. Could be interesting to play with, right? Especially if you're gonna do like a second UV workflow where you can just vertex paint that on. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I hope that helped a little bit. I think the rest of it is looking pretty good. I like the mood and like the atmosphere that you're going for. Yeah, it's just about grounding this building, right? That's going to be very important because it is the main character in this piece. And you could even say that we're literally going to ground the building. Oh, little heart next to it. Yeah, I think let's have a look. The props are looking interesting. I like this one. This is gonna be the hero prop of the scene, I feel. The other ones, yeah, it's kind of a bit too stereotypical. You know what I mean? Like it's almost too boring compared to the rest of it. Like I would almost love to see like a futuristic designed suitcase, right? Like probably gonna send you off the wrong trail though. With futuristic, I don't mean like, oh, we're gonna go sci-fi, but like a case that is actually like beautifully designed and like somewhat sleek. It came more as a hard surface exercise. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Great stuff though. I like some of the shots in the beginning. Like this shot, it's really good. Go full screen again. The entry shot, very interesting. You can do a lot of cool stuff here with like just blinking lights and like subtle movements on the camera, you know? You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. I need to find some refs for some sci-fi stuff. Yeah, like maybe look at what NASA is using, right? Like just a stupid suitcase from like NASA and like how that one looks. Maybe there's some interesting designs that you can get from it. Oh yes, it'd be very interesting to look into. But yeah, great stuff, man. Great stuff. I like where this is going. And I'm sure if you're going to give this like a lot of character, you can kind of apply the same kind of things that we discussed about today with like giving it character to like all the other props as well, right? Because you could technically, let's say you keep these crates, right? Even if you apply like all the teachings of like adding character to it, where it comes into contact with the terrain itself, and yeah, have the satellite half burned and all that kind of stuff, that could be very valuable and like adds a lot of depth to it, you know? So you could, even if you would keep this, like you can make that interesting by just adding the layers of character onto it again. You can do that with everything, right? So yeah, it's up to you if you want to keep them. I bet you can make them look cool as well. Nice one. Thank you so much, George. Oh, the satellite will be half burned because it fell from the sky. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, you're gonna have some cool like burn marks that are like following the shape of it. That's gonna be awesome. Save that up. Thank you so much. No worries. Thank you so much for putting it up as well. Next up, this awesome looking prop from Tate Bitters, I think. Let me see if I got that right. Tate Bitters. Yes. People are adding very good comments in here as well. Let me see. So some of the comments, wait, before we go into that, let me actually see what Tate is asking for, right? Does the base color feel like it needs more variation? Okay, that's one of the things that I want to bring up. Does the roughness need more contrast or more micro details? I'm always open to any and extra feedback. Yep, that's why I got these two in here, right? And I think actually a previous comment that I've made on, I think the first post is actually by utilizing the noise trick, right? Where you add like a colored noise on top of it to get more color variation that you wouldn't necessarily would add onto a prop. I think you can apply that same thing here. Because right now, like most of the colors are still leaning towards like the same kind of spectrum, right? Where it is like that bluish, greenish stuff. But it would be cool to see, yeah, some slight reds, some slight purples, and some kind of stuff like that in there to add like more depth to the whole color scheme. So I'm gonna start by adding that, and you kind of have like a very good reference for that, you know, like we're seeing like a lot of color contrast or like color variation in here where it has like, it almost goes towards the yellow, right? Like these brighter spots seems to be almost pushing more towards the yellowish side. And then you have like almost kind of purples come in. Like, it's very interesting when it comes to the colors. So think about that noise trick. Think about that noise trick that we talked about before, where you basically add a noise on top of it, fill it with a gradient map with just like all the little color icons that you have in Substance Designer or whatever, and then just add that as like a subtle overlay at the end. Gonna bring it all together. Yeah, you can see that here. I would definitely push the colors, right? And again, it's very subtle stuff, right? Like yellow and purple, they're the first ones that kind of come to mind. Like, they can add so much to this. But it can definitely push that. Colored noise as an overlay. Colored noise as overlay. Just right tip. Then there's some other stuff that other people brought up as well, which is freaking amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I think it's actually Alexander and Jono that brought that up, right? Let's have a look. Jono was in there. I think Alex was in the thread as well. Thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate that a lot. One of the things that was brought up was the height of the tape. Let's say more height, slightly more height, right? Slightly more height. You can actually also do the same thing on this. What's it called again? Oh my god, I had this last time as well. On this plate. Can't think about the specific name now. Serial plate, right? Like a serial number plate. I think that could be very helpful. I kind of feel the same about the letters as well. Like the letters, comparing it to the ref. Or the lettering. Because yeah, they have like a more defined height to them. Right? Maybe, I don't think so. I was about to say maybe it's also because of the light that's currently being used in this environment that it kind of diminishes the shadow, right? Because here you do have like a strong light source, which is kind of, well, sort of strong light point, like stronger than in here it seems. So yeah, you can definitely push that up a little bit as well. Yeah, honestly, yeah, already freaking amazing job on this though. I know that we kind of jumped straight into the feedback, but freaking amazing work already. Nice attention to detail. Yeah, more height here as well. I think if you're doing more height, you got to be careful that these two things, they come up higher than like the actual serial number plate, so you got to take that into account as well. So you basically have the base layer, which is like the thing itself, then the serial plate on top of that, and then those two pins that come out slightly on top of it too, right? So you're layering like multiple layers on top of each other. Let's have a look again. What was some of the other stuff? Roughness need more contrast. I honestly don't think that the roughness needs more contrast. I think the roughness here, obviously we're not looking at the roughness, so it's kind of, well, even if we were to, like, I think roughness, you can have your roughness, but you also need to keep in mind the light that's affecting it and also highlighting specific sections that you want to highlight, right? They kind of work in tandem. So this might be like on point when it comes to roughness, but the lighting might be a little bit, like if you shine a light on it differently, it's going to look totally different. Like, well, not totally, but like a little bit different. That can also happen. But I think actually feels very realistic in my opinion. Because you also got to take into account that you're working with like different lighting conditions. Again, like this is outdoors, so you're going to get like overly lit stuff where you have the benefit of like having to tweak it with like studio lighting. So yeah, great stuff though, Tate. Looking awesome. We're gonna interrupt with a little question here from Teboho. Hey Timothy, I'm still a student. Would you recommend Blender as a primary software for environment models? That's what I've been using. Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, all the stuff you hear about Blender not being the industry standard is just a lie. Like, it just depends on the company, right? And if the company really wants you to switch, then you just have to switch. I mean, it sounds, I know it sounds weird, but I had to switch like 2 times. You know, as I started in Max, then switched to Maya, and then now I'm doing everything in Blender. So it just becomes, yeah, it's easier to switch because you're just moving sideways, right? You're not learning like a whole new skill. So yeah, just keep using Blender. Good stuff, Tate. Thank you so much for putting it up here as well. And I think you're new to the community as well, so welcome. Next up, we got Jeremiah over here. Doing a little bit of Crash Bandicoot. Where's my Discord? Let's get some context for this one. Currently working on this environment. Well, it's a diorama now. Mostly looking for feedback to improve my composition, considering that I'll want to render from the front, one from the back. One from the back? Okay, interesting. Haven't thought about underrenders for now. Also in the swamp watery environment. And the second main issue that I have is looking of cool ways to present it. I was looking at water dioramas yesterday night and thoughts about having some weird animal in it. Yeah, improving the composition and come up with a cool presentation idea. Okay. So, yeah. See what you're saying. I don't think you have to go too crazy. You know? Improve the composition. I think the composition here is going to be more about clarity and the story that you want to tell, right? Because even if you compare these two, right? Obviously, we're looking at a grayscale model compared to like a concept that has like more shadow depth and all that stuff to work with. But even the entrance, you know, like it's super simplified. I don't think you need like all of this stuff going on to make it look interesting, because you can literally just have this first part with maybe these 2 railing pieces and get rid of most of the stuff on there. The reason why I say that is because it kind of just looks noisy, you know? Like it kind of just feels like really noisy. So I would say, especially on this part, right? Like reduce the noise. Reduce the noise. And even just simplify it. Simplify. It doesn't need to be like this dense in terms of like the amount of assets that you need there, right? Like you can literally just keep it like this straight panel, Oh, this is a wonky overpaint. Jesus. Yeah, you can just literally do that. Have like just one, basically like the concept, right? Like the concept in this is very clear, very distinct. Like just focusing on like a couple of shapes, try to keep the rest of it like relatively simple and really chunky, right? So that it doesn't take up too much of the visual fidelity of things, right? Because basically what's important is this stuff. This stuff looks kind of interesting as well. But you want, yeah, obviously you got this fucking giant like arrow pointing here. But if you then look at all the other stuff, like it's subdued, right? It doesn't have a lot of noise. So you can kind of use that where all of the other shapes are big and simple, right? And they don't have a lot of complexity in terms of textures either. Where the other ones, like that's where you want people to focus, right? So this is going to be very important to kind of nail that. Where if we look at this little section, right? I'm not even focusing on like all the like the main sign. Like this stuff, there's too much stuff going on here. Like you can get rid of like all of these planks. All of these planks can go as well. All of this stuff can go. You know what I'm saying? Like really simplify it. I have like a couple of planks that have it make sense for like structural integrity, right? So that you get like the feeling that, oh, this house can still stand. But you don't need like all that noise on top of it. You can really simplify this stuff. And then you just have like the clear entrance coming in. You got this nice sign that's going in here. You obviously got this sign pointing towards it. And then yeah, I think what you also have with translating this into 3D, you have a real opportunity of making it bigger than the actual concept was meant to be, right? I'll give an actual example here, where this billboard, make that like twice the size, but put it over here. You know, like put it on stilts. Have like, I don't know. Like this is where we're at, you know. Make it a giant billboard over here. And then you reduce the noise again, right? So like reducing the noise on the roof as well. So let's say move the billboard. Because is this an actual area that they made in the game? Or was it just a concept? The reason why I asked that question is it would be interesting to see. Yeah, oh, okay, in that case, that's perfect. It would be interesting to see how they translated the concept into the 3D scene and what kind of choices they made because of it. Could be very interesting to learn from in that case. But yeah, I think the main part here is just simplifying it, like pushing the composition like a little bit broader. And just getting rid of all the noise, right? Like, get rid of this. Pick one area where you want to have like a bar kind of thing. And then just, yeah, make it look like a bar, right? Like just a stereotypical bar. And then clean up the rest of it. Because what you could do is say like, cool, this is the bar area. Right? Go in. I'm imagining the interior now. Right? So you go in, you have like a bunch of tables. The bar is going to be maybe to the right, you know? Like, so if we're inside, like the bar is going to be like over here. And then you have like a door that comes out to the outdoor bar, like the terrace area. Right? So you're going to have like a door that goes that way. And then you also have a door here probably. But then this area, what is that going to be? You can make that anything, right? Like a parking spot, toilet. No, or you could just remove it. Because asymmetry is more pleasing than purely symmetrical. Right? So you could even remove this and let the highlight of this area just be like this this billboard, right? And then you could maybe make like an interesting like wooden frame below it where you add some visual interest that side, but you're just simplifying everything, right? So probably going to get rid of all this. You put a little bit of attention here, but you want the main attention to be over here, right, on your scene. So yeah, you got to be careful about that. So have most of your composition focus on this point, and then if you're going to do a bar, have it like maybe a little bit more in the back where it's not aligned with the building itself, but it's actually like a little bit more detached and in the back. That is going to help with just, it's there, but it is not vying for your attention as you look at the scene. Right? I hope that makes sense. And I think it could be a cool exercise. Like the exercise that I just did is like, okay, cool. I live in this world. I rock up with my little boat. I open a door. What do I see? What would you expect in like a little bar like this, right? Like, where's the bar gonna be? Like, where's the toilets? Like, where do I go for food? Do they have food? Do they have like a second floor? Because maybe the second floor could also lead into like a little balcony area, right? That you can show off. Like you can go crazy with that stuff if you start role playing it. And that's all up to you, right? It's all your imagination. Yeah. Bar, question mark. I think that could be cool. Just having yeah, what I'm currently thinking is like if I kind of do like a slice, right? So focus point is going to be in the middle. And then on the right, we're going to have like an area of interest, right? An area of interest to me doesn't need to be a focal point, but it's going to be there and it's going to inspire people to think about like stories that they made up themselves, right? So a bar area, perfect example. And then if you throw down some chairs like you did, like, yeah, you can make that look interesting. And then this is just going to be like a little bit of set dressing, right? Like this is, you'll see it. It has a little bit of relevancy to it, but you're not going to stay around there for too long. Whereas like the main stuff is all happening like around this place, right? Now to your second question, for the presentation of it, I'm immediately thinking swamp. Like, I don't know, like a swamp would be, this fits a swamp to me. Like that's the first thing that came up and I was like, hell yeah, swamp would be nice, you know? So I'll just do set in a swamp. And then you can do some cool stuff where you have like these plants, you know, like sometimes, I don't know, never been to a swamp, so I'm kind of guessing here. Gotta be careful with that. But yeah, they do have trees in there, right? So you can kind of use those trees as like a foreground element where I'm almost, let's pick an empty area. I've been doodling a lot. So let's say this is like, this is your little house, right? And then you have like the pier that's sticking out, and then like the bar area is here, and then you have like what is it? Like this is the billboard that's sticking out from behind the building. But then what you can actually do with like some of the interesting foreground elements is, yeah, you have a tree, But the tree is like sticking partially in the water, you know? You have like a bigger tree here, and then you can add a lot of depth by just adding like more trees like in the background. You know, and then the whole thing is gonna be like on stilts, like in the water. It's gonna look freaking interesting. Plus, all of this is just one tree, which is literally not even a tree. I'm thinking long, what's the word? Long trunk, right? Where you can literally not even see like the upper part, and then the rest of it is just like this filthy, dirty smog. Like I don't know, like a filthy green kind of atmosphere, right? That just calls out into the distance, so you don't even have to bother with the trees. Or you can make like really simple meshes to act as like fake trees at that point. Yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. I would definitely go for like a swampy area for this one. I mean, look, it's up to you, right? The first thing that came to my mind was swamp. Maybe you can come up with a better idea. Totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah. Oh, cool though. Try to simplify as much as possible on this. That's also what I'm trying to do, right? With these trees, simple trees. Go up into like the canopy. You can't even see it. And you can do so much cool stuff. You can make like interesting silhouettes with those trees because it is a quirky kind of style. So you could kind of go crazy with it. And then also, yeah, a lot of this stuff, just simplify it, right? That's gonna be the main thing. Simple and powerful. What you want. Oh, what? Cool. Simple plus powerful. Love. Yeah. I think that's going to be amazing, honestly. Gonna be amazing. Good stuff. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. If you got any more questions, feel free to ask. Let me read through the chat as well. So, oh, okay. So you looked at the 3D stuff. I made a roof using 3 different wooden planks, but I think maybe the one is too noisy as well. Any idea on how I can fix that too? Oh, the roof too noisy? I think with this kind of style, what you want is have like a large roof that is sometimes like a plank is coming loose of it, right? That's the way that I'm seeing it. So I would almost kind of treat it as one mesh, and then occasionally like a plank comes loose and like reveals the underside of it. You could do that, or you could kind of make them like as separate add-on meshes, right? And then just cut into the mesh of like a giant tileable. If you want to keep those, if you want to keep the roof that you have now, you want to simplify that, just make it I honestly think that the shading is doing a lot of the damage here as well. So try to get proper shading on it first and see how noisy it looks then. Because the reason why I say the shading is because you have this like really strong bevel, and that bevel is asking for a lot of attention, right? Because you see it everywhere. So trimming that bevel down is going to help a lot as well, because it's not going to vie for your attention so much, especially compared to all the other stuff. And also you have the cavity shader on, right? On a cavity or whatever shader it is, so it's going to highlight it even more. So try that first, and see what that gets you. For this example, don't really have an example for this. Roof? Question mark? I don't really think of an example for this one, honestly. . Aloya! Hello, long time no see. Welcome back. I hope everything is cool with you. I'm still studying at the end, and at the same time, started a YouTube channel like a hobby. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Oh, Luis Alberto. Sorry, I completely forgot your question. Is it possible to join the Discord? If so, how can I do it? I think just go to our website. I think that's the easiest way. I was just trying to think if I actually added a link. If I actually added a link to the Discord notes, but I don't think so. So I'm just gonna share our website here, and that's where you can join as well. Sorry for missing that question, Alberto. And then got a couple of other questions as well. Abdallah, is AI gonna replace stylized 3D modeling artists? Nope, it's gonna make them even more important. Creativity is always gonna be important, and I feel like what's gonna happen is that AI will get quicker and quicker with realistic stuff, and that will allow companies to be more creative again. Hopefully, right? That's my view on it. So, stylized and creative people are going to be more important in the future. Giraffe, I think it's good to start with Blender to test out the waters, since it can somewhat do a lot of things. It can do everything. You know? Like, it kind of depends on how far you want to go. Obviously, sculpting has a lot of limitations still, but oh my god, it can do so much. You know? And it's also easier accessible than like a lot of the other programs are. So like make a big shape with a tileable and then add a few planks here and there. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Or you could just do the same thing that you're doing now and just really try to simplify the shape, right? And like merge them a lot with each other. And also, yeah, don't base it on this view, because this view is very noisy, but it's the matcap doing a lot of the work. Like the shader itself is actually making it noisy. So don't base a lot of it on there. Luis Alberto, I will join the Discord. That's awesome. Looking forward to seeing you in the community. Okay, Route 1. Let's have a look. Where I got it, thanks man. No worries. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look-see. Right, you know what I'm going to point out, right? Because we already kind of talked about it. I'm going to point out this little section. So this little section can probably be like a lighter color. The reason why I say that is because we have like the whole thing is like a consistent color. But I'm imagining that this specific section, because it is like kind of chipped off, has been broken off more recently. So that means that it's probably also going to have a lighter color, because it's not going to be touched by as many butts as the other part of this bench was, right? So you can kind of use that to your advantage and actually use that. Broken off. I actually started doing something like this on my own environment just quite recently as well, so works really well. And also, it would actually be cool to darken the bark. That is, I think it's supposed to be bark, right? Like the outer layer, it kind of has like that bark-like texture. So what I've seen, because I spend a lot of time looking at random wood pictures, is so you have the core of your wood, Well, let's actually... Yeah, let's actually do a flat layer. So this is the core of the wood. And then there is like an outer layer which has like a different color. And then it transitions into bark. Right? So what we have now is that like the wood is very consistent and very unique, or like very same-ish, right? In terms of color. And I think, let me actually look this up. Let me actually make sure. Cut wood. Yeah, so you can kind of see it here. Right? So you have, this is what I'm talking about. Like you have the core, and then you have like an edge that is going to be like a different color, and then you have the start of the bark. So it could be nice to highlight that as well, where you have like that ring to signify that this is the start of the bark that's starting to grow there. I think this is also a good example. This is more what I was kind of talking about. A little bit more low res. But like you can actually see it at the core of it is actually pretty light, and then you have like a darker edge, and then like a darker still edge on the bark itself. So you have this like gradient of like 3 different layers at the edges. And especially if you're doing something like this, which is made out of like raw wood, it would be cool to have that transition. So yeah, that transition could be very interesting for you to use. Sure. Tunk, tunk, tunk. Put some nails in there. Put a nail in there as well. Quite interestingly, I don't know, because you're trying to do like a Viking thing, right? I don't know what they had in terms of nails, but I'm looking at medieval stuff, right? So we're kind of relative, sorta, in like time period. So what they usually had is they had like squarish nails, or they had like very off-shapen like kind of nails, instead of like the round ones that we're kind of used to. But that could also be like an interesting one to implement. Instead of like the more stereotypical rounded ones, and make it a little bit more unique. Right, it could be very interesting to look into. Also, on the topic of this, right? If you're trying to do something that looks, what's the right word? Like splintered, like cut off. Let's actually have some ref on here as well, right? I think I actually shared some ref before, if I remember correctly. But it's kind of tricky to find some of it. Because what you see in like a lot of, at least in the references that I'm finding, is that they didn't really have the tools for it, right? So what they would do is they would carve them by hand, and that left like a very distinct manner of like carving, where probably not gonna find like a very authentic thing now, but let's take this one for example, where we would have like these panels, like these cuts almost, because they were cutting into it with like, I think adses or the word that they, or like the tool that they used in the time. But they have like this very distinct kind of way. So having a straight cut like that actually kind of weird. So maybe breaking that up where you have like a section that is like completely cut in and then one that comes out a little bit further. And maybe another one that goes back in more, you know? Just to break up the shape a little bit, because this, yeah, it feels too smooth, you know what I'm saying? Like you almost want to think in like big blocky sections when it comes to this. Then you can kind of have like a section that kind of splintered off. Maybe this is not going to be straight either. Yeah. And maybe maybe if you're getting so close to something like this, to an asset like this, then could maybe be nice to even exaggerate some of the shapes, right? So like, this is even coming loose. Be interesting as well. Just some ideas. Yeah, I think the main thing that I wanted to point out here is that you have this like very smooth shape. And that doesn't really translate well to like something that they would literally have to like hand cut, right? And the hand cutting thing, you don't have to do that in a sculpt, right? You could kind of use an alpha for that, or what you can also do is use like an image, kind of level it out so that it's kind of black and white, and then use that as like an overlay and like use that in your base color and whatever. That's kind of what I did as well. Just totally fine. Yeah, and then you can do the same thing here as well. Like thinking, because you have like multiple layers, right? And that's where the uniqueness of wood comes in, where you have this first solid layer, right? And then underneath that, you have like this other layer that's also like chipped and splintered and like kind of broken at the edges. And it's gonna add a visual interest to like the ends, right? So we're gonna have like a lot of detail here. And what that allows us to do is kind of diminish the detail on like the other sections. Especially on the noise side, right? Gotta be careful with that. Or if you add noise, like it needs to look a bit more like the woods, where it's like a little bit more organic. Let me actually reduce noise. Wood. And then what you can also do to level it up to the next level is think about how people would interact with this and how they would sit on it. You're probably going to notice that the center seating area is probably going to be discolored because of that. I mean, you can even take like a modern example, right? Like, let me see if I can find some real quick. That's all brand new stuff though. Yeah, I mean, okay. You know, like, it's not the best of examples, but you can see what I mean. Like, there's areas that have just seen, like, way much more butts on it than other areas. So you can also kind of incorporate that into the asset as well. And actually, once now that I'm looking at it, have a look at the gradient that's happening here on the asset itself, just purely from the wood, right? It'd be very interesting to incorporate as well on the leg specifically. A little bit of a floor gradient going on. Would be very cool. And the floor gradient, yeah, this stuff. This looks great. You could even push that a little bit more, you know? And like have more different colors in here, because now we've got the greens. Could also be nice to have some browns and some reds and some more color variation in there. Also, wait, before we jump into that, let's finish this one, right? So we got the floor gradient going. We talked about the ends a little bit. Talked about the nails. Yeah, I think we're good on this. I think, yeah, to come back on this, floor gradient here is starting to take shape, right? But I think it's kind of looking that it's more like, what's the word? Like rotten or like starting to decay wood, you know? Like it's a lot of wet. Like a wet discoloration that's happening, where you could just do like, yeah, darker colored wood at the bottom and then combine it with that green color. Yeah, this is a great start, you know? Love it. And then the next thing that I'm thinking about here, we're gonna talk about character again. Dude, that's so much, you know? Like it feels like if you look at this, like everything is kind of straight. You did, or wait, maybe I should explain it better. I think what you did is you did a great job on like all the mid shapes, right? Like you have nice sculpting detail and there is like stuff going on here, right? But then on the actual geometry, the geometry itself is like freaking straight. You know, like we draw straight lines, like they follow those like immediately. So what you can do, just add a little bit of variation in there, you know? Like, switch it up a little bit. Like have this one come out a little bit more to the side. Right? And then maybe not have them like fully the same diameter all the way. And then maybe switch up this little plank here just slightly. Angle it down. And then kind of do the same thing here. Right? Or even give it like a couple of extra edges in the middle and like push it down with like soft selection, right? Where you get like a little bit of like a kink. I think, no, I don't have a visual example. I was thinking I was taking some screenshots of my own work yesterday. I was like, I need to save these out. But I think it's a different thing entirely. Let me have a quick look. Screenshots, Windows editor. I can just rotate the low poly for that. 100%, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to go back to baking or anything like that. This is literally just cutting in some stuff or rotating the low poly. Yeah. It's totally fine. Oh, I guess... Yeah, I guess I can show this in a way what I meant with the previous point on the bench, where the ends that are broken off, you kind of want like a different color for them so that they kind of stand out as like more fresher wood than the rest of it is. Yeah, it's not to my point that I was making just now. Give it character. Yeah, simple stuff, right? Like, it doesn't take too much work, but it's literally gonna push it to the next level. Kind of like you're doing here, right? Like, everything here is not on the same line, like everything is slightly offset. You just need to continue that. Should I just create a nail in ZBrush, then add it to the table, stool, and bench instead of going back into the asset? Well, you'll have to go back into the asset, right, to remove the nails anyway. Because they're gonna be on your UVs and you don't want to waste... You don't want to waste like any UV space, right? So you'll have to make room for them. Or like you'll have to remove the older ones. Change the shape or to a square shape. Yeah, I don't think you can avoid going back into the asset, especially if you want to present it at the end as like, hey, look, this is like the breakdown of the prop, right? So you'll have to do it properly. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. Because I think what you're saying is you wanna add it as like a separate prop, right? That you can reuse between like all the assets. But yeah, I think you're texturing them in a way where they are separate assets anyway. So then having like the little nail that you share between them, like that's just gonna be weird, right? Because that means that you're gonna have like, I don't know, 64 by 64 like texture for like a little nail that's just gonna be floating between them. It's gonna be awkward, right? Just delete the old nails in 3ds Max. I think so. Yeah. Raul has subscribed. Thank you so much for the subscription, Raul. Replace, sorry, I just confused you. Yeah, replace the old nails in 3ds Max. Yep. Yep. Yeah, the thing that I want to highlight here is that you have to look at how they made their stuff, right? That's what you want to do, and like kind of go and dig for like what are some of the techniques that they used and like how they made stuff. Because I think what also happened is that if they could avoid using metal, they would do it. So what they would usually do is they would have joints that kind of look like, let's do a top-down thing, right? So this is like a pillar of a random object. What they would usually do is they would have like a wood plank sticking through it, and then they would have a peg on this side to keep it in place. Right? So they wouldn't actually use like metal nails in like a lot of it. Unless you're looking at like the later stages of medieval time, right? Where metal became like widely accessible. Yeah, that took quite some time. And then if you then want to do like a crossbeam like this, what they actually did, if we look at it from the side now, so this is our pillar. And then you have the one thing coming in here with a peg that's going through there. Then they would have the next layer start a little bit higher, and then they would drive a peg through that way, right? So you would have like, they wouldn't cross on the same level. They would actually like stack them on top of each other so that they could like make holes into like the center frame and then just drive them through it. Oh my god. I've watched too many blogs and too many breakdowns of like wood connections. I'm becoming a becoming a wood joint nerd. But I'm just saying this in reference to like maybe you're going for like a later time or you don't want to go as deep, right? That's also totally fine. It's all up to you, right? Because I think what your initial inspiration was like God of War, and what usually games do, or like what any creative endeavor does, unless they're going through like historical recreations, is that they look at it and then they're like, okay, cool, but we're also not going to recreate all they did because we're just making a game, right? So I think it could be cool to still replace the nails with like the square heads because it's going to give it more character. But I don't necessarily expect you to go as deep than all the freaking stuff that I was explaining here, like for every prop, right? You don't need to, anyway. You could, but you don't need to. Yeah. And then let's have a look here. I think this is also something that we kind of discussed before. I think it's looking better already, but like the wood ends, right? Like they will probably have like the circular pattern on them because that's how they cut like these planks. So I would kind of expect to see that in the wooden ends a bit more than it does now. That's gonna make them distinct as well. They're gonna be circular. I totally forgot what you wanted to feedback on, by the way. Didn't even check. Oh, okay, so didn't really want to specify anything. I do have the aged wood here as well. Also needs to be lighter. Yep. Yeah, I think so too. Like all the stuff that we kind of talked about here, right, is applicable here. Like I think we went kind of crazy on like all the stuff that you would need to do here on like general wood, and then you can just take those teachings and apply that here, right? The gradient is gonna look awesome in here as well. We have like a gradient going up and down, like the wooden ends, like we talked about here. And then if you have broken off pieces, yeah, make them a little bit lighter. Like this section, for example, could be interesting. You have like a little dip in here. Maybe the center of this is like lighter than the rest of it. Yeah. Yes, keep it up, John. Keep it up. Wasn't expecting that much feedback. Nah, cool stuff, John. I think, honestly, you know, with all this feedback out of the way, I think, and a lot of people said the same thing, right? Like, this bench is definitely going into the right direction. Like, this bench is looking really good. Just, yeah. I think this will allow you to push it to, like, the next level, you know? So, great stuff, man. Keep it up. All right. It's already 2 hours. Jesus Christ. That went quick. Oh yeah, and thanks for posting it, John. Appreciate it. Cool. So yeah, what I'll do. Thanks everyone for posting it here. Aaron, Alexander, Fabiano, Jono, George, Hey Bitters, Jeremiah, John. Awesome to see you all here. Awesome to see you constantly pushing yourself as well. I'm gonna share this overpaint with you like after the stream, and I'll link to the stream as well so you can get back to it really quickly. Yeah, awesome stuff. Keep it going, guys. I'm gonna switch it up here. Ah, yeah, George. All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pop out. I think 2 hours was actually pretty nice, you know? So, uh, what is happening here? Okay. So, this is pretty big. So, it kind of went out as I went live. But, we are now officially looking for people that want to collaborate with us on our first ever quote unquote studios project. Like it's where we're gonna be basing it on like a Southeast Asia markets. We already have the scene, it's fully blocked out, and we're just looking for people that maybe want to collaborate. So yeah, that just went out to like the community. So if you have an interest in that, feel free to let me know. And yeah, that was just like a little big announcement there. I should have done that in the beginning of the stream, honestly. But hey, here we are. So yeah, let me know if you want to collaborate. And when is the next thing what we're gonna do? So in 2 days, I'll be back for a stream. And I'm gonna be continuing on my little project that I'm working on, you know? And we're probably gonna be making some new scenes. So I'm gonna take all the assets that I've been polishing up over the last couple of weeks, and we're gonna make like a couple of new scenes, see what we can build with it. And then see where we need to go from there. So yeah, I'll see you there. That's gonna be like during the day on Friday. I'll probably stream like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. That's gonna be a nice one. Yeah, I'll see you there. And if not, I'm here next Wednesday for another Work in Progress Wednesday. So I'll see you then, and I'll wish everyone a nice day. And thanks for being here. Bye-bye. Bye, people.